when we actually, are more intentional about the way that we live. So I think it can actually be a very positive thing. All of us knows that we're going to die sooner or later. It comes earlier for some than it does for others. But we know that that's a fact of who we are as organisms. So to remember that, I think, enables us to really rejoice in the time that we have, to use it well, to use it thoughtfully, to be serious about relationships, to think seriously about things like forgiveness, empathies, and how we want to spend our lives. If we have a limited amount of time, what do I want to do with that time so that I don't come to the end of my life with regrets for things that I wish I had done?
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. And I love that in a way that when you speak about being aware of death enriches life. And I love that. And when we think about our seasons here in Canada, we think about our seasons, and when we go through the summer and then we hit fall, and all of a sudden we anticipate, oh my gosh, we're going into winter. The summer is that much richer because, we miss it. We miss certain things about it. But then we miss that time of wintering in the summer when it's hot and it's all of these things going on. And so I love that. And I'm going to put you on the spot here because I just realized I'm thinking it's not saying recording in the corner. So just as you started into that beautiful thing, and I wasn't going to stop you, I realized we were in a recording. So I'm going to ask you again to tell us who you are, because I'm going to pick this up. It's going to be very off the cuff here. So tell us again who you are.
I'm a Roman Catholic theologian and a student of the Bible. I have degrees in theology and biblical studies. I taught for a number of years in London on a couple of theology faculties at Western University, and I've taught some overseas. A lot of my work has been in interfaith dialogue, primarily with the Jewish and Muslim communities. So I like to think of myself as a broadly Catholic theologian and thinker.
Wonderful. And you now work in a different capacity, right?
I do. 3 years ago, I moved to Barrie, and I now work as the adult faith formation animator for the Simcoe Muskoka Catholic District School Board. So I work with our employees, all of our adult staff, in terms of their own spiritual development and their own growth in faith. I try to offer them resources and opportunities that will help them to go deeper into some of the big questions that we ask as human beings.
Wonderful. And I know that I was really interested when you told me your work, because as you pointed out, in Ontario, we have the Catholic School Board, of which a teacher needs to be part of the Roman Catholic religion. Is that correct? But your support staff can be of any religion. So that's
they can be, and many of our employees are not themselves Catholic. Many of them are Christians of other denominations. Some of them belong to other world religions. Some of them just identify themselves as more spiritual or more philosophical about life. So yeah, we have a whole range within our employee pool.
Exactly. And so that the job of being a spiritual guide or a spiritual enricher, as you called yourself, an animator, which we often think of cartoons and characters, but animator means to bring to life, right?
Well, because it comes from the Latin anima, which means the soul.
The soul.
It's someone who tries to enhance the soul side of our work in Catholic education, that tries to emphasize the spiritual and the religious and the faith element of what we do in Catholic education broadly.
Right. So just so that we know, for the purpose of this, I had asked you about how does facing mortality or death enrich life. So your opening comments was about that, because we're in a time right now where I see it so often when I see people driving with masks on, and I realize that we are such a fearful society right now. We're scared, and what we're scared of is getting sick and dying. And that's what's prompted more so the work that I'm doing, that I've brought to the surface, which is end of life care, and often working with hospice and palliative care, and people who are imminent with death, are close to death. They've been told because of terminal illness or a chronic disease that death is imminent. But it's funny how we all are going to die. You just said that a few minutes ago. We're all going to die. It's just that if it's not brought up in our face, often we avoid talking about it. So my second thought for you, Marie, to ask is, how has isolation enriched lives? Or to put it another way, how has the death of our social interactions created more life in people? In your opinion?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think there's a broad sweeping answer to that, because I think for as many people as have been enriched in some way by this isolation, I think there's a large number of people who are struggling, and it has made life more difficult and more complicated and more painful for them. I think, people that I know who have who struggle with mental health questions in their lives, people who have anxiety and depression, I think that this isolation has actually made it much more difficult. And the fact that they don't have the same easy access to healthcare, means that they feel the isolation a little bit more. And the social opportunities that they would. But I think that, as I talk to people, I think it's for many families, it's given them time to spend together in ways that they normally wouldn't. Many families are spending all day together. And I think once they got through the difficulties of rejigging their lives, I hear a lot of families that are really enjoying their time together, and they're discovering new facets of their lives together. Simple things like playing board games, doing paint by numbers, or things like that. I think we're discovering joy in really simple things, and that we're realizing that it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be expensive. There's lots of wonderful ways that we can enrich our lives that are simple, that are inexpensive, that are very old school in many ways. It doesn't have to rely a lot on technology. But I think, in my world, people tell me that it has given them time and opportunities to think about spiritual questions. Google says that there has been a huge surge in searches for questions and terms related to spirituality and religion and prayer in the last 3 months. Some of that, I'm sure, is related to the questions of mortality that we were talking about. Yeah. But some of it is, I think people have an opportunity now. Things are quieter. They have more time. And I think, people are thinking about some of those questions. So there's a lot of religious groups are saying that they're live streaming their services or their reflections, and they have more people participating online than they have ever had in person. So I think it's revealing there's a deep hunger out there, and it's been a catalyst, I think, for people to reflect on some of those questions and to start experimenting, to start exploring, seeing what's out there, and kind of almost like a wine tasting.
Yeah.
Trying various different spiritual options and trying to find which one suits them the best.
Exactly. And I think that for me, it's been the fear of death that has brought this to life, in the sense that people are isolating because they're afraid. Yeah. And the fear is that, COVID can kill and does kill. Yeah. And so I find that it makes me gleeful almost. And that's a horrible thing to say in times like this, but it's because I want to open the conversation. As I told you, I'm working on the death doula program, and I've been a death doula for years in my heart. It's just, how do you be that in society? And I'm making calls with palliative care through the hospice, and I give them a phone call, and we talk, and we can talk about real things, because I'm not just calling as a cursory call. One of my clients that I talk to quite often, she'll say to me, I don't want to cry anymore to my friends. They're tired of hearing about it. But for me, I call and I go in. I also consider myself as a first responder. As firefighters, everybody's running out of the fire. Firefighters are running in. Ambulance drivers, paramedics, everybody's running away from the accident. They're running in. And as a death doula and as an end-of-life care, when everybody's scattering because they're afraid of death and don't know how to deal with it, I'm running in to be with the people. And so I love that. I love that aspect of it. And it's brought life for me. I find that I'm much more valued around my life. Each day I'm thankful. We have the gratitude movement that's going. And so So one last question I'm going to pose to you, just as a conversation for you to have for me here is, where is God then? Where is the divine, in your opinion, in death? I just had a conversation with someone the other day that she said that her friends, some of her religious friends, have said, oh, how could God have let this happen? How could God, the Job story, right? Like, you've been a good person. So she was asking me, did I do something wrong? Is God punishing me? And so I know how I feel about it, and I'd love to hear where you feel God is, or the divine. I'm going to use both frame of references.
Sure.
That spiritual energy, where is it in the death story for you?
Well, I think first off, I don't adhere to that idea that God does bad things to people. I think that's a very distorted, twisted idea of God as I understand God. God is fundamentally loving, and God, is the source of love and life. God doesn't do those kinds of, I think that sometimes we take human relationships and we extrapolate them onto God in really unhealthy ways. So I don't think that's a good way to think about God. And my tradition doesn't think that's a good way to think about God. Where is God in all of this? I think God is in the carers. God is in the people who are there, who are the first responders, who are, my sister is a nurse who works in public health and has worked in palliative care for much of her career. I see God in people like that. I see God in the doctors and the nurses and the medical staff who are there every single day, taking great risks to provide the best professional, loving care that they can for those who are in the hospitals. I think God is in the people who are on the front lines in other ways, like our grocery workers, are the people who are running our garbage trucks, the people who are doing the ordinary things, people in our pharmacies who are doing just ordinary things in extraordinary times that are enabling the rest of us to continue on with life in a more or less normal way. I think God is there in those who are comforting the dying, who are, I hear stories every day. I have several friends who've come through COVID, and one who's still in a hospital right now in BC, and the nurses who are coming in with their phones to set up video chats with his family who can't come to see them. They don't have to do that. That's not part of their contract.
Right.
But they above and beyond. So the people who are trying to provide comfort, who are trying to provide guidance. Certainly, a lot of our clergy are doing that through Skype, through Zoom, through video chat, because that's the only way they can reach their congregations. So I think, I think the people who are caring, the people who are supporting, the people who are courageous, the people who are loving, that's where I see God in all of this.
Wonderful. I know in the tradition that I'm in, the Protestant tradition, specifically the United Church of Canada, there's the Song of Faith, which is a wonderful document that has been created as a subordinate statement of faith. And I love it. And in one of the lines of the many, 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 many lines that's in it is that God is mystery. And holy love, holy being WHOLLY, holy and completely love. And so when I think of it as where is God, or where is the divine in all of this, I totally agree with you. I do not subscribe to a vengeful God. I do not subscribe to that where God sits somewhere outside of us looking down or looking wherever up or whatever, saying, oh, I'm just gonna, throw this monkey wrench into so-and-so's life today so that they can realize that I have control. I think God is an all-loving, encompassing mystery that is with us and is there. I love the one stained glass that we see where Jesus, who is our understanding of God incarnate, is knocking at the door to get in. And when you see a traditional picture of that, if you look carefully at it, there's no doorknob. Jesus cannot open that door and come in. Jesus is knocking and saying, I'm here, but you have to open the door. And that's what I believe about where God is. When you open the door to the love, to the mystery, to the passion, to the support, to the care, that's where God is. And that's why people in times of sadness and deep grief find that sense of mystery and that love and that holy presence, because they're so vulnerable. They open that door and let it flood in, and it is through the death experience that they then in turn go on to appreciate life.
I
So
think part of the challenge right now is that's mediated through human relationship. We experience that through other people around us. And right now, of course, because of the social distancing limitations, even funerals can only have a handful of people at them. And I've talked to a number of friends who've lost loved ones through this period. And they said the hardest part was our family couldn't be there. Our friends couldn't be there. The people who would normally be that source of support and strength and comfort, at best, are present through a video screen. So I worry what that's going to mean for people in the months ahead, because I think a lot of people are experiencing very complex grief as a result of this, and guilt over the things that they wish that they could do for their loved ones, and they simply can't because of the circumstances. So I think we need to be very attentive to each other, very caring and supportive of each other, because a lot of people are carrying very heavy burdens because of this, and is complicating that in really new and unpredictable ways.
right. And I think that is so true. Everything you just said there. I have had a friend who her husband died of cancer during this time, and the daughters only saw him through the window on his last day. And that just broke my heart. And I said to my own daughter, I said, I think they would have had a hard time keeping you on the other side of that window. Something tells me that you would have forced your way through. And that's my fear, as you say, in the months and the weeks to come, as people's shock and denial wear off into the other phases that grief is witnessed to, with the anger and the bargaining, that there's going to be moments in time when people say, why didn't I just say I'm going in and I want to hug my loved one? And so there will be those moments for them. And I think as people who help others through that, that'll be the work we can do as support systems. And so it's
so thank you for the work that you're doing.
Well, thanks. And it's interesting because I don't give myself enough credit, I don't think, in the sense that I work retail, as you know, and our retail division shut down on the 16th of March. And I didn't really think about it. I just automatically thought, okay, well, I need to be doing something. So I called the local retirement home and said, hey, can you use my skills? Because I've been a frontline caregiver. And they jumped on it right away. And so I've been working as a frontline caregiver. And, people are saying to me, way to go, way to go. And it's like, I did, but I know it's an important work, and I'm doing it. It's been a very good time for me because, as you know, 2 years ago, I walked away from the work because I was burned out, and I'm only just starting now to come back. And I've done so much personal spiritual work. I mean, as you know, again, and I'm open to say, I'm just over 2 years alcohol free. That's been a huge grief journey for me as well. And you've been instrumental in that as my friend and my guide. And I'm so appreciative and thankful and grateful for you all the time. So, Barrie, I love you, and I'm so glad you're my friend.
Love you too, Cynthia. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the work that you're doing at a very, very crucial and very impactful time in our world.
Well, thanks, and I appreciate, and I know that people will be asking me, who is this man? And so if they're asking and they get permission from you to post something that they can follow more about you, because I'm sure there's ways that they can do that. But anyway,
if I can be of any help, let me know.
I'm going to hit the stop record button for right now, and so we will talk again soon, and I'm going to stop this so that it can be uploaded, and so here we are. Have a good day, everybody, and we'll be talking again soon.